Hello and welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining this live. I am very, very excited to bring these guests onto the channel. Okay, so I will let them introduce themselves. Okay, but first, I just want to say my name is Jasmine Ambrosia. I'm a practicing witch, high priestess, teacher, this, that, the third. Okay, and tonight we are talking about the dark goddess. So, go ahead, introduce yourself, my lovely, beautiful, talented, charismatic, and intuitive guests. Whoever wants to go first.
Let me go first. This is your everyday girl. I gotta warm up a little, okay?
Well, hello everyone. My name is Sydney. This is Luna here. She also wants to join the live. And I am also a practicing witch, a part of the Solar Court Coven with Jazz, who is my high priestess and sister in the craft. I teach classes on Crash Course on the Norse mythology, Elder Futhark runes, and working with Freya. So, you can find me on YouTube. You can also find me on Instagram or Facebook.
Are you done?
Yeah.
So my name's Samuel. I am a 22-year-old practicing pagan witch. I'm a devotee of the Morrigan and a follower of that lovely, deliciously, amazing, incredible Cricket Path. And I read tarot. I've been a witch since I was 14. I'm a pretty chill witch, honestly. Like total forest swamp witch vibe. But yeah, I'm also a senior in college. Boom. Thank you. Thank you. I love you guys.
Hello, I'm the Nerdy Warlock, and I am a practicing warlock, which just means that I am a witch that has problems and with words and labels. And I have a little bit of chaos in my path and a little bit of green in my path. But essentially, I'm just super eclectic, but with an affinity for a lot of shadow work. But you can find me on YouTube at The Nerdy Warlock and Instagram at The Nerdy Warlock. Just the head move.
Okay, I love that.
We gotta do something to spice it up. I've been dancing since the astrology class tonight, so.
I love that. And I'm ready to take a good class, girl. Oh my god.
Please.
Class. Take a good class. I need to start working on my class I want to teach. I'm just busy, girl.
Look,
I need to make more time.
You gotta tell the Morgan, like, the way my schedule is set up, if I want this class to manifest, I'm gonna need this much time. You know, a little something.
Well, I'm in this like interesting stasis period right now in my craft, because I'm starting priesthood training summer solstice, and that's like 3 years. So I'm taking this beautiful little. She's giving me this grace period before she's like, okay, you started now, and we're just gonna fucking balls to the wall your ass, you know. So
That's it. That's really
I'm
it.
getting a beautiful respite moment right now. Okay.
It's like, enjoy this peace, calmful part of your life while it lasts.
Yeah. And that's okay, girl. Oh my gosh, that is okay. That is a freaking okay. I would love to be a witch my whole life and be able to, like, my only job be a witch. Yes.
That's a lifestyle at this point. That's really the goal.
But I feel real weird about like peddling my spells and things, you know, like you have a spell from me. Like horrifying.
Hi, Rosa.
Hi.
Have headphones.
Yeah, because that. Hold on, she's got the Android.
Okay, Rosa, put your headphones on. Your headphones, habiti.
No, honey.
We don't.
Rosa,
Yes.
I'm going to mute you until you put your headphones on, okay? So we have a guest joining us live. This is so exciting. Oh my God. I can't wait. I can't wait. So while Rosa is looking for their headphones, I will just kind of introduce them. So Rosalinda, come on, habite, is a very good Judy, a very good student of mine. And oh, we got the headphones. Okay. And they are joining our live. And Rosalinda, Rosa, and their mother, Melody, have started their own Beyond the Flame company, making candles and oils and this, that, and the third. Okay,
Cool.
leave the links down below. Oh, what is this notification? What's going on here? Oh, I got it. Okay.
The tech witchery
I
continues.
don't know how it works. Okay.
Done.
It's always usually it's a da 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 da, but sometimes it's a da 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 da.
Right.
I have no technology skills. I can barely send an email.
So Rosa left, but I'm sure she'll be back. Let's just get into our dark goddess
Period.
her tonight. And
Period.
if Rosa comes back, then great. And if not, that's okay. So what was the first question for our live tonight?
I will grab it.
So,
So,
oh, go ahead.
oh, sorry. No, you go. You go.
No, you already got it.
Okay, what does the MCC or your maiden mother crone mean to you? And is the Trinity a part of your practice? And if yes, how so? If not, why not?
Who wants to go first? I feel like I'm reliving my life right now, girl. I had class today where it's real quiet, and I hate the awkward silence. I'm like, I'll talk first, but I hate being the one that talks first.
All right, I'm back, guys.
Okay.
It's okay.
Hello.
So we're going to answer these questions. So Beyond the Flame and Sage. The first question was, can you say it again, Sydney?
Yes. So, what does maiden mother crone mean to you? Is this Trinity a part of your practice? If yes, explain. If not, explain as well.
So did everyone else already go?
No.
As I was
No.
like searching for these headphones.
Thanks to your mother, you got them.
Thank you,
Oh.
mother.
You're welcome.
None of us has gone. Do you want to go first, Rosa?
Yeah, sure, since the spotlight's on me right now.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, guys. I can't find my headphones.
My kids. I love my kids.
All right, so
I have like 20 pairs, but they're not here, Josh.
Oh.
all right, so for me, maiden, mother, and crone, I was first introduced to this, I would say a couple years ago. I was just searching the web around on Facebook because, I felt like I needed to reconnect with my spiritual and mental and physical, magic self. So I came across like this symbolicness of like, the crescent moon and the full moon. And, I was like, what is this symbol? And I started looking into it and I searched so hard. It was ridiculous just looking up emojis and like trying to figure out, put wordings to those emojis. I'm like, okay, what's going on? So then I finally found out it's Mother, Maiden, and Crone, and that some people refer to like Hecate and her three faces. And currently, Sydney knows some of this about me. I am currently still researching about Hecate. And for me, I kind of resonate that through Hecate. But in my beginning times of like Mother, Maiden, and Crone, I kind of see me and my family like resonating with this so much because me, I am the youngest of my generation here, still living. And then there's my mother and then my grandmother. Thankfully, I still have them. And my grandmother, she's Christian, okay? But I swear, okay? I swear. She doesn't want to admit it, but she knows she's got them little psychic visions up in there and stuff. So she can speak things into existence and whatnot. But for me, I see us as kind of a symbolic figure of that. But in my work, I tend to use the maiden a lot, but mostly the mother, because when I was pregnant with my first child, I would, call upon the mother face a lot to try to help me work throughout my motherhood and, beginning my motherhood. So I can't say I really knew what I was doing because that was like the beginning of my work with the, triple goddess moments and all that. But I would say I'm still learning. And a part of being a Celtic, or however you say, I can never pronounce that word right.
Eclectic.
But there you go. You said it earlier. I always pronounce it wrong. Like no matter how many times I read it or have Siri repeat it to me, I can never say it right. Eclectic. That's how you say it?
Eclectic.
Eclectic. There we go. Thank you, honey.
Yalla habibti.
Thank you. But for me, it's still like, I'm still, dipping my toes in the waters with it. But I want to hear what you guys have to say too.
So what you guys
Can
think?
y'all hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Do you mind if I go next?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I have a lot of opinions on the Maiden Mother Crone. Actually, as with everything, I have a lot of opinions, honey. I love the Maiden Mother Crone iconography. Like, I resonate with the crone energy more than anything else in the world. Like, that old woman, ancient wisdom vibe of like experience. I'm obsessed with it. However, I want to mention that the Maiden Mother Crone aspect is a rather new development in goddess worship. Specifically, we can talk about Hecate or Hecate. Traditionally, like in Greek religion, she was a maiden goddess that was just a triune, a three-headed, three-formed goddess. She didn't have a Maiden Mother Crone aspect until rather recently. Not saying that it's incorrect or anything like that, but that's just how she was seen, as just a maiden. She wasn't. She was also chthonic, but also of the hearth, of home and protection of like children. So that's a little bit different. Even myself, like with the Morrigan, like she has, a multitude of sisters, but it's typically seen as like having three sisters. When I first started to work with her, I really wanted to apply the Maiden Mother Crone on her because as Bive, she's transformed into an old woman. She is seen as like a maiden figure, not necessarily a mother, but like as a goddess of sovereignty, you could say she's a mother of the land that she is sovereign over. I tried so hard to apply that to her and was quickly corrected by many more well-experienced Morrigan practitioners. So I think that the iconography, the archetypes, Maiden Mother Crone is beautiful, fantastic, and wonderful. However, in my personal humble opinion, we have to be very careful applying that very general idea of Maiden Mother and Crone to deities that don't traditionally have that aspect, because it does shift them, not necessarily in a negative way, but it does shift their intentions and their purposes. So yeah, I would just be very, very cautious of who you apply that to. All triune goddesses are not maiden, mother, crone aspects.
So, Samuel, what is your answer to the question?
That is kind of my answer. I love.
Is MMC, is maiden, mother, crone a part of your practice? And if yes, how so? And if no, how is it not?
I totally got off on a tangent.
That's okay.
That's me.
I got off on a tangent. Previously, yes, I worshipped before I started working with the Morgan, I worshipped the goddess, and I saw her as an archetype of maiden, mother, and crone. So yes, previously, before I started working with my current goddess, and even my current goddess, I tried to apply that archetype to, and I was wrong. And I was corrected in that manner. So I tried to continue working with that archetype, but no, I currently do not work with the maiden, mother, crone. As much as I love the archetypal what they represent, anyway.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Who wants to go next?
I'll go.
Okay.
So it's not particularly a part of my practice at all. More so is the Sun Father Sage than the Mother Maiden Crone. But crone energy in general is something that is very heavy in my practice. And I have struggled to work with any kind of like mother phases of any goddess because of my own problems with my mother in real life.
How it be?
And I don't work with the maiden either because of problems that I have when I was in my maiden phase in life, younger. So that's shadow work to do. But I do work with the crone very heavily. But I think when a lot of people work with the mother maiden crone, they think that it has to be 3 phases of a single goddess. And for me, when inevitably I do expand, I think that into my path, they'll probably each 3 be totally different deities from each other that embody those principles of each phase of life. But yeah, short answer is no, it's not really a part of my path though.
Okay.
For me, I would say there's a portion of it that I take, but I would say I'm more similar to how the Nerdy Warlock goes about it, because I do have like similar issues with more mothering energy. Like I do understand like Dark Mother. Like that took a while to understand though. But I also feel like most of the deities I work with are kind of like under this umbrella of like the goddess in general is basically over 10, like the goddess of 10,000 names. And I feel like most of the goddesses that I like initially started working with, such as like Bastet, or talking to Isis or Sekhmet, they didn't always have like another phase. Like Sekhmet kind of came out of Bastet in a way, so I understood that crone energy, but not so much like the mother. Like the mother is just kind of lost to me. I'm like, I'm kind of like an auntie energy, so like I don't know how it translates. In my practice, it's not always a big thing, but I do try to leave offerings to the triple goddess, because I feel like when I'm doing a working, depending on like time of year or like the working itself, sometimes I do involve all 3 to be over that working. But is it big in my practice? No. Do I like and understand it? Yes. Hecate makes me understand it more, but I'm like, I still don't see you, girl. Like, I see you, I understand you, but me and you got a different relationship.
So, okay, so I think I'm kind of with Rosa on this, and I will say why. So, first of all, um, for me, my witchcraft comes back to the fact that I was raised by my mother and my grandmother. You know, my biological father wasn't super present, and my stepfather, who became like my dad, didn't really come into my life until I was in my teenage years. So most of my childhood and my fundamental like upbringing was my grams, as Sydney has met, and my mother, who has crossed to the veil. You know what I'm saying? So growing up, um, it was me, my other siblings, of course, I'm 4 of 8, but me, my mother, my grandmother. So this idea of like maiden mother crone was always there. Even before I even realized that I was a witch, the idea of the generations of the crone, of the grandmother, of the mother, and of the granddaughter of the maiden, that was always a thing in my family. And if my siblings are watching, I'm not saying I was the favorite, but you know, you know the vibes. You know the vibes.
Right.
So, my grandmother and I, when my mother passed, it was a very, and I'm about to get really like raw up here on YouTube. This is normally like a Patreon thing for me. But when my mother was in the process of crossing over the veil, my grandmother and I, and some other people, and my siblings, and friends of the family, and my husband, we were all in the room, and we felt this shift between me and my grandmother and my mother. And when they pulled the tube out of her throat, and she made that gargle sound that you make before you die, my grandmother and I had this eye contact moment. And I knew that, you know, in my family, I was always the unbound maiden of potential. And I suddenly became the mother and the matriarch of my family. So maiden mother crone for me on a cultural and social level is a huge part of my practice because my family personally and culturally is very matriarchal. The woman runs the household per my culture, per my family. And when my mother passed, it was like I became this role because no one else in my family could really handle what was going on. So I stepped into this mother role. And I was 22 years old at this time, the middle child of 8 siblings. And, you know, it really kind of me up in a lot of ways and really put me through the ringer. And it was through the trauma of watching my mother, you know, die and cross over in front of my eyes. It was through that trauma. And some of that still haunts me to this day. I can still hear that gargle. I can still see her hands clench up. I can still see her necrotic black skin rot off of her flesh. I mean, it's quite horrific. Like, it still haunts me. And that's something I still work through, you know? But it was that moment of watching my mother, who was very much my best friend. We shared everything together. We would talk on the phone for hours together. It was that moment that really brought me closer, actually, to the Dark Goddess. So, of course, all of that being said, that is what has sculpted my craft and my practice to now, today, you know, how does the MMC, the Maiden Mother Crone, affect my practice? And yes or no? Absolutely, it does, because I'm very ancestral. And you know, for me, my mother, my grandmother are my everything. Of course, my ancestors are important, but that is the closest relationship I've ever had in my entire life. And if my husband was watching, like, I love you too, but my mother and my grandmother are everything to me. And every single thing I do in the physical, the digital or the astral, would be for my mother across the veil. And even now, as my grandmother's primary caretaker, like, I go out of my way to make sure that she has everything that she needs because she's essentially become my child. So it's like the roles have kind of reversed. And so when I think of the goddess, for me, and this does not invalidate anyone else who spoke their piece, okay? We're all allowed to have our own opinions and our own feelings. I just want to make that clear for anyone watching. But for me, I kind of agree with Rosa in the sense that how I connect to the goddess is very much MMC, Maiden Mother Crone. And how I see the dark goddess, I see this also broken down into the dark maiden, the dark mother, which is the primal aspect of the dark mother, and also like the dark crone, aka the hag. Because, you know, we have the crone, which is like the sacred, elderly, feminine energy, but we also have the hag, which is very much like the bastardized energy of an elderly woman. And Sid can attest to this, but my grandmother, her license plate says crone and there's hellfire around her license plate. She's so cool. And I hope that I can have her
Hell yeah.
on my channel at some point. But yes, for the first question, do I incorporate MMC in my practice? Hell yes. And yeah. So what was the second question, Sydney?
Let me take a look. Hold, please.
Okay. I'm sorry. I feel like I went on a tangent, so I apologize.
So, number 2, what does quote unquote dark mean to you?
Okay. Why don't we start off with the Nerdy Warlock and then go to Samuel and then go to Beyond the Flame and then Crafton and then I'll close it out.
What does dark mean to me? Mama, I am the dark, first off. So, like, and I have, and that's actually, like, I'm being serious. Like, ever since I was very, very, very little, I remember always wanting to be in the physical dark all the time. Like, I did not want to be in the light at all. And what does dark mean to me? Besides me, for me, it just, I don't believe in evil or the concept of evil. That's not a word I use, so definitely dark does not equate to evil. And yes, negative or negativity does equate to dark for me, but that's not all it is. Like, for me, dark is just none of that BS of the strictly love and light stuff, because I really don't like that. Dark is being honest and bringing in all aspects of the universe and of life, because life isn't just love and light. So dark is just, it's honest. It's just honesty. It's the truth. That's what dark is to me. That's it.
I love that. Me and you are the exact opposite, honey. I have been mortified of the dark since I was hella young, like horrified of it. Even girls sometimes now, if I got a funny feeling, I will turn my light on and right to sleep with the light on. Like, no tea, no shade. But I really don't like the term dark, honestly, or the term light in general, because I think that that term is obviously applied to what culturally and societally we deem to be dark versus light. You know, I work with my ancestors. I work with the spirits of the dead all day, every day. Like, those are that's my first love, is our spirits of the dead. That's chthonic, and that could be considered dark, but I don't see them that way. They are the most, like, and I definitely work with ancestors that would be the light version of the spirit world, you know, but even then it's just what is in the dark is misunderstood. So, and I guess that's probably what darkness means to me is misunderstanding, because I'll give an example. Fertility, and I mentioned this in the last, and I think it was before we even got on live. Fertility, what we see now to be like only associated with motherhood and growth and like abundance. That's wonderful, you know. Before our ancestors, fertility was you either have cattle and crops or the whole village is fucking dead. They are. Oh, sorry if I cussed. I don't know if that's allowed. The whole village is dead. They're all gone, you know? So fertility was a very dark subject back in the day, because if you didn't have, I mean, even if you were infertile, you didn't have babies, you didn't have anybody to work the fields, dead, you know? That was a dark subject. Now it has a very lighter tone. So I think that the term darkness also, the word darkness is not only misunderstood, but also challenges us. You know, what do we consider to be dark in comparison to what society would be, you know, or what is dark within ourselves that could be brought to some type of light? Or is it okay that it's dark, because darkness doesn't necessarily mean evil, dank, scary, you know, dark, there is a purity in the term darkness as well. If that answers the question.
I totally agree with that. So is it okay? So I kind of agree with Samuel. Like I don't know. When I work with, let's say for me, dark. I work with the color black.
You're breaking up right now, honey, just so you know.
I'm breaking up. The headphones. I need the headphones. Hold on a second.
Oh, please.
Is that better? I think it's the headphones.
Rosetta, why don't you leave the chat and come back?
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, Sydney, will you answer the question?
Mm-hmm. So I guess it's like not hard, but essentially per being a Black woman, I see dark as respect. There's very much, especially for someone like me, like my skin tone is still considered very light. So I feel like my mother, who's passed on, she basically had more of a darker skin tone, while me and my dad had more lighter skin tones. So we were essentially given like a different form of treatment, because light-skinned people were basically seen, like at least in the community that I was in, as having a little bit more shine or a little bit more popularity. Like for me and my father, we could get along with anybody. And that's just like our personalities. But my mother, I feel like you had to earn her respect. And I feel like for any person who is dark on a skin level, or like with melanation, like you have to give so much more respect to, because they're treated so differently. They're treated so differently in society. They're treated so differently when it comes to cosmetics. I mean, like I can still like pass off as like light tan in my foundation. So I feel like for those who are more melanated and blessed with that, it's definitely like I treat darkness as a respect, because it's kind of like I don't know what that even looks like, even as being a Black woman, because I am of the lighter variety of shade. And I feel like kind of like the darkness that comes from the connotation of dark, most people essentially take that as like baneful, or malevolent, or something that is like a force to be reckoned with. And I do agree with some of those kind of like connotations, but I also know that that's not the full tea of darkness or being dark or having dark to you. Because I feel like since I was a child, I've always looked at everything as a yin and yang, as something that has masculine, it probably has feminine to it. Kind of like the discussion we were having earlier about certain deities. Some people might think they're like highly masculine, but it's like you haven't seen, or maybe you're like not focusing on the femininity that could come in with them, and vice versa. So yeah, it's very much like RESPECT for me.
Okay. Rosa, are you back? Oh, we left. Okay.
Just it's the trouble. It's the tech witchery. It's a little different.
Mercury in
Oh.
retrograde starts in what, like 2 or 3 days? Like it's pre-retrograde, okay?
The shadow period is
Hold, please.
Mhm. The shifts and changes of Pethros season right now.
Oh my goodness. Better, guys.
No.
Oh my. I'm gonna transfer onto my mom.
Okay. Well, Jazz, I guess it's their time to go.
I wanted to ask you, I may have heard this from a Rick Riordan book, honestly, but I read that black in ancient Egypt was a good color because it meant like moist loam, like soil that can grow things, you know. So I think that's also interesting because oftentimes we think of dark as like associated with black and light associated with white, when in all reality, again, socially, what is that, you know?
Mhm.
Like what do we get it from? So I think that's a good example.
So I just want to say, so for me, what does dark mean for me? And to touch on what Samuel was saying, like for me, you know, from my cultural background, it's interesting because for us, for our funerals, we typically have white flowers and white roses, especially, are customary at funerals because white represents the dead, versus black is very much a sacred, fertile color, like what Samuel was talking about in Egyptian mythology. Black is very much like the fertile soil, or the soil of growth, or the mud and the clay. So for me, when I think of white or black, when I think of black or dark, I think of the unseen. I think of the potential. I think of magic that is in the astral. I think of what we do in our mind's eye. That is darkness, right? Because there is no light shed upon what we are doing. When I think of the white, I think of what we can see with our eyes, what the light illuminates. And when I think of the dark, it's the unilluminated magic. It's the magic that we do on the astral level. And that's how I have always seen dark, is it's not illuminated and it's fertile. So that kind of, in a nutshell, answers my question, but I agree with everything that Sydney said. So what was our third question?
I'll take a look. So our third question is, what makes a goddess, quote unquote, dark?
Can I start? I'm just going to start.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mom.
So, Per the Live, right? What makes a goddess dark? This is my opinion. This is my practice. We're allowed to disagree, okay? And that's the nice thing about talking to different practitioners is that we can have our differences. But when I think of a dark goddess, okay, specifically a dark goddess, in my eyes, in my practice, this would look like Hecate. This would look like the Morrigan. Okay. This would look like Bod, Naka, Naiman. This would look like Kalima. This would look like Sekhmet. This would look like Skadi. When I think of dark goddesses. Now, to me, a dark goddess is a goddess who embodies some sort of magic, witchcraft, prophecy, divination, some sort of esoteric quality. I would also think of a goddess of war and pain and triumph and redemption. I would also, okay, in that same regard, think of a goddess who is over life and death, mediumship and fertility. To me, these are all qualities that make up a dark goddess. And when we talk about the MMC, the Maiden Mother Crone, I think that's a sacred trinity for me. But I also think of the maiden, the mother, the crone, and the dark. The dark in the sense that we're born as the maiden. We live as the mother. We die as the crone. We return to the dark. And what is the dark? The dark for me is the 8th house energy. The dark for me is the occult, mediumship, psychic abilities, and witchcraft. And that is not something, personally, that, and this is controversial, that the maiden, the mother, or the crone fully embodies. So while the MMC is a big part of me and my practice and my ancestral practice, like I talked about earlier, the dark goddess for me is something even more sacred because it is that in-between liminal space of reincarnation, right? Of like the in-between. So, and maybe people who identify more so like with a masculine or identify more so as male might see this totally different because for me it is very I don't want to like look. So people have like thrown the insult of like Dianic Wicca at me and at my coven for a long time. They're like, "Oh, you're one of those Dianic covens." And it's almost like it's an insult. But what I want to say here, and I know I'm going on a tangent, okay? But what I want to say here is that it's interesting to me. It's peculiar to me how it's an insult to be Dianic, but there are plenty of men-only spaces or cis male-only spaces or cis hetero only spaces. But if there is a women's space, it's all of a sudden exclusionary and it's all of a sudden problematic. Here's my thing. If you told me that you had a men's only or like the Hermetic order, like a gay men's only space, I probably wouldn't try to enter that. Because I feel like that's not a space for me. So I don't know why. And I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of wild ass comments in the live from saying this. But fuck it. Or let me say that. Yeah, no. Yeah, no. I don't know why it's like that. Where it's like, if I want to have a goddess-centric practice, why is it all of a sudden, well, where's the men folk? Well, where's the divine masculine? And why is that an issue? So anyway, back to the original question. Whoever wants to go ahead, go ahead. I'm going on a tangent. Excuse Grandma Jazz.
I'll go then. So I am devoted to a dark goddess. I, again, going back to my last answer, I don't like the term dark necessarily as a descriptor, because then again, I also believe that goddesses are aspects, like the Morrigan. There is a dark aspect to her, but she isn't all doom and gloom, war and battle, strife and anger, death. Like that's just not her. Like she's even in the lore historically, shepherds prayed to her for like fertility of the cows. Like she was not all doom and gloom, evil and dark. I do agree that I could say that her dark aspects would be life, death, war, battle fury, prophecy. But then again, it's also in those spaces. Why would prophecy be considered dark? Because if you gave prophecy of prosperity, love, abundance, that's not necessarily that wouldn't be considered dark to many people, But when prophecy preaches war, famine, hardship, then it would be considered dark. And again, we could Hecate, the dark mother, chthonic, working with the underworld. Okay, but she also is a protector of children. So why would you label her a dark goddess? Because she's a little bit more challenging, maybe. But you're focusing on an aspect of her. I mean, how many epithets does Hecate have? Like so many, which epithet, which name are you calling upon? Like the Morrigan, I wouldn't consider her a dark goddess. Niven, I would probably consider her a dark goddess. Incitement of battle fury, and like she who like walks on spears in the battlefield would be considered dark in my opinion. So I think that even though I work with a dark goddess, I don't necessarily label her as one, because she's also a queen of the fairy as well. So like the Tuatha Dé queen, so I'm very poignant to mention that while she is labeled probably societally as a dark goddess because it's the things that people don't want to focus on, that's why I wouldn't consider her dark, because I focus on those things: life, death, ancestry, spirit work, war, and protesting and all that kind of stuff that people would necessarily consider to be dark is not dark for me. So yeah, that.
Is it my turn now? We're gonna have to let me know what the question was again, because I was
Whoever
out
wants to go
here.
next is fine. Whoever wants to go next is fine.
So the question is, what makes a goddess dark?
Oh, okay. So I think we skipped a question. That's why I was like, what dark meant to me. So what makes a goddess dark? So since the first goddess I ever worked with was Aphrodite. And to me she really wasn't dark for me. Like, that's the only goddess I can truly say I have at least a little bit of knowledge of, but other than that, I do know that most people consider Hecate to be the dark mother. But honestly, I mean, if I think of a dark goddess, I would think of something from the underworld, maybe peaceful, and yet with I wouldn't say evil side. I would say more of like a true side. What's underneath, what's your true self and all that.
Rosa, I agree with everything that you are saying. And girl, I feel you and I resonate with you. But baby, your mic is not it. There is something going on your audio side. And It's
My
jarring.
goodness.
It's jarring, Habiba. It's
These
jarring.
are this is my mom's headphones, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like rattly. So I really, really like want to hear what you have to say, but on the live video, it just sounds kind of like broken and you're cutting in and out. So do you have a second pair of headphones that you can use?
Do we have a second pair of headphones? Because these aren't working.
They're not, Rosa. I'm sorry.
I know. This sucks, guys. Oh my
I'm
god.
sorry. But hey, listen, Rosa.
Look, I'm gonna let
So,
you guys do it. I'm gonna watch. Okay.
okay.
I really loved and enjoyed being here, but I don't think they have another one. But I'm gonna
Okay.
watch and I'll
But-
comment in the
And
section.
Rosa, yeah, comment down below. Comment in the description and let us know what you think, okay?
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Okay. So Sydney?
Okay. So, unpopular opinion. So, also too, most of the goddesses that I've like kind of been like walking this path with up until recently, essentially were usually more mother goddesses, like Isis. I feel not really Bass, but I feel like they were always like over women and children. But lately, it has been a pull to the Morrigan and mostly a little bit more with like Maka, Bod in name. Um, so they have been the ones that I've been like kind of cycling through with, but I also really 100% feel, at least with the work that I'm doing with Freya right now, that I would consider her a dark goddess. I consider her a dark goddess because essentially she is over life and death. She is a part of war and battle. I mean, she's literally the leader of the Valkyries. And she does have notions of like sexuality, love, and beauty to her, but I see those as part of glamour, like glamours that she uses to essentially get her way a lot of times. And she is a part of doing like Saith or Satyr, basically like witchcraft, which does have to do with a lot of trans prophecy kind of work and going to the underworld and speaking with the other dark goddess that I love and enjoy, Hel. And I feel like I've been kind of pulled to her. I've been pulled to Hel, and I've also been pulled to Scotty. Um, I don't know. I definitely agree with Jazz where I do feel like you have to kind of come from the dark. And I feel like if there's not an association with some form of witchcraft or sorcery or esoteric like background, then I wouldn't fully consider them to be a dark goddess. Um, I would also say Hecate is. Um, I feel like the Morrigan definitely is. Sekhmet too, because she was one of the first goddesses I kind of like learned about and worked with through the Egyptian pantheon outside of Isis. So I feel like I've kind of gotten more of the crone aspects of goddesses, as well as ones that tend to learn or try to, how can I say it? It's sometimes it's like a priestess moment, and sometimes too it's kind of like passing on the torch to like the next generation. So I feel like primarily working with Freya and like learning how to give offerings to Scotty being a Jotun, even though she's not always considered a goddess, I still revere her. And same with Hel, because she is literally the underworld that which you go to if you do not die in battle. You go to her hall. So that's kind of my tea. I don't really know what else to say.
Yeah. Yeah, sounds good.
I agree, Queen.
Period. I just want to say, like, thank you to Uncle Badger and Melody Mercado and Leanne Richer and Gwen the Recovering Witch, and Star Ruby and Jean Eldefe and who else? Kitten Carnage and Baby Firefly and AKA Morningstar. Thank you all so much for joining our Dark Goddess Live. And I hope that this live about the Dark Goddess has, brought you some form of education or insight. We are all different practitioners of different beliefs and backgrounds. And I want to reinforce that while we may share or not share the same beliefs, it is my belief, it is my opinion that all of these paths are valid. All of these experiences are valid. Even though some of these may not be mine or yours, these are still valid. And talking about Cometicism and the Egyptian pantheon, I think Nut, or the dark cosmos, however that may manifest in your life, is up to you to interpret. So whether you see the dark as maiden, mother, or crone, or you see it as a personified goddess, I think that's valid. And I think that is up to your own interpretation. And I think that being witches and priests or priestesses in the modern age is very much about modernizing mythology and the gods, because I believe the gods can evolve to the current times. I very much believe that how we practiced, thousands of years ago is fundamentally not how we are going to practice in 2021. Okay. But do any of my guests have any things to say before we hop off of this live?
I would just say, with the last question we were talking about, I think what makes a goddess dark isn't always necessarily what she resides over or what attributes are put to her. Just because she's a goddess of death doesn't mean she's a dark goddess, in my opinion. Like going over to Greco-Roman land, Nox and Nyx, the goddesses of night, in my opinion, they're really not dark goddesses in terms of like their emotion or their like mentality. However, like Hera is a dark goddess to me. And so is Athena, because of their emotional states and how they treat people who wrong them. So I think that if you were going to work with dark goddesses, don't always feel like you have to work with a certain list that you saw on the internet or in a book.
Amen. Amun-Ra.
Girl, I was talking and my whole mic was on. I was like getting real into it. Do your own research, of course, and really get to know your deity. Unverified personal gnosis is lovely and fantastic, but I personally believe that all religion, anything that you practice to a certain has to be founded in something. So read the lore. While again, Aphrodite, I'm just bringing this up because
Rosa.
Thank you. Rosa mentioned it. Goddess of love and beauty, but she also is the one who started the Trojan War. You know, like
Yes. Thank you.
like we have to give all deities. I mean, like the nerdy warlock mentioned Hera, goddess of motherhood. You know, the home, but also vengeful and very backstabby. So like just get to know your deity, get to know the aspects of your deity so you can call on them more particularly so their energy can work more congruently with the work that you're doing. You know, you wouldn't call on the Morgan as battle slayer, you know, when I need some crops to grow, you know. I wouldn't call on her to help vary the cows if I need her as the prophetess. So get to know your deities intimately because all of them have light and dark aspects.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Accurate, on point, on brand. Basically what they said is on point, but I feel like creating your relationship with a deity is definitely based upon the research that you do. Like I'm not saying that a deity can't have other aspects to them, but you don't know until you start leaving your offerings, lighting candles in their name, creating, something of substance for them to be like, oh, you really want to speak to me. You really want to get to know me. Well, now I'm here. So, what would you like to know? What would you like to do? So, to get the work done, you got to do the work. It is not, um, it's not all, it's not always too going to work out in your favor. And just because you work with a goddess, a dark god, either one, honestly, doesn't mean you know the whole tea. Okay. And try to be very fluid in the work that you do with them and for them because you may think like I thought my relationship with Freya was going to be just runes and here we are talking about some shadow work or here we are talking about ways that I teach my classes or ways that I go about working with students. Like it's definitely up to the work you want to do and what you want to create with them, you know? And don't be surprised when you get little gifts like a table when you're doing the work, okay?
Period. So I just want to say thank you all again for joining this Dark Goddess Live. I appreciate you all so much, and may the Dark Goddess hold you in her infernal wings. We are going to end this live, and all of my guests, once we end this live, we will still be behind the scenes if you want to kiki after hours. And for all of the guests, until next time, blessed be.
Blessed be y'all.
Blessed be. Bianak.